We are still a long way out from the opening of Orlando Magic training camp, but we're already thinking about some of the decisions they're going to have to make. So let's dive a little bit into it, some of the choices that are ahead for the Orlando Magic, at least some of them for now, on today's episode of Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is August 1st, 2023. Where did the time go? My name is Philip Rossman. I'm the expert and site editor over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, we're going to start diving into some of the decisions and questions the Magic are going to have to face very early on in this season. Some of the kind of the big picture things that will be played out, obviously, in training camp, but as we get through the season, we're going to get to some of those questions, start kind of bouncing around some of these ideas here coming up in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first thing in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, there's a great Locked On podcast covering every single team in the NBA. Just search for Locked On and the team you're looking for, the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. Obviously, we are still a long way out from the start of training camp. We are still a long way out from having a lot of these questions answered. We're just kind of bubbling with anticipation for what the Orlando Magic are going to do and what the Orlando Magic are going to be during this 2024 season. I can feel the excitement from my interactions with all of you. Certainly there is just a buzz about this team. And while, yes, a lot of the league is still kind of sleeping on the Orlando Magic, we all sense that this could be the start of something really special. And I explained why, historically it feels that way on yesterday's show. But I don't want to get too lost in all this excitement. I don't want us to just think it is inevitable that the Magic are going to be a playoff team this year, that they're going to ascend to the top of the Eastern Conference. No. This is going to be a journey and a process. There are going to be big decisions along the way. There are going to be risks taken. And to Jeff Weltman's credit, he has avoided taking some risks here until he is sure that it's time to take those risks. But there are going to be decisions made and sliding doors and all that stuff going on. And as I've said a million times before, this season is a big season for kind of figuring out some of those questions. This season is a big season in determining which direction the Magic ultimately want to head and ultimately who the Magic are going to invest in, what kind of team the Magic are ultimately going to be, and whether this team can actually stand up to the pressures of a playoff chase, of taking that next step. Everyone says level up, level up, level up, level up. But the question then becomes, okay, can you actually produce the results? And well, I don't think this, I know I've said this a million times. I know I've said this a lot. I do expect the Magic to compete for and make the play-in tournament this year. The vibe I still get is that this is still a team that cares more about development than results. And the team, well, certainly the decisions that they ultimately make may be determined by results. This team isn't going to lose sleep or necessarily no one's in danger if they lose this season, unless they lose really big. But this team is still about the growth that they show and what that reveals moving forward. And so before we even get to the season, there are the kind of stakes for the year are getting set. And we know just from the way contracts are set out that this season is a big season for making these kinds of decisions. That we know that while the Magic feel very secure with their 2 4s of Paolo, Banchero, and Franz Wagner, there are a lot of questions in their backcourt. And, we went over this a few weeks ago now, or I think last week, about, the potential for Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony and what their contracts might ultimately look like. We've gone over this with that in that regard. What kind of extensions do they get? Do the Magic secure them? Do they invest in themselves and believe they can make more money by playing out the season? Do the Magic want to see a little bit more from them? The point, before we get to training camp, and if I read the CBA correctly, the Magic can't offer Markelle Fultz a new deal till December because of the quirk of when he signed that contract. The Magic have a lot of decisions to make with these 2 players. And yes, a lot of it's going to get proven on the court. If Markelle Fultz makes the growth that we expect that he's going to make and continues to expand his game the way that he looked like he was expanding his game at the end of last season, then moot point, they're going to take care of it. Same thing with Cole Anthony. The contract slot is probably more important in the cap room at this point, as the Magic explore how to make this team better. Ultimately, the way you make this team better is through a trade. You're not going to the big name guys don't move in free agency; they move in trades. And so you just got to be in position to get them when that time comes and have the players. Sorry, knocked my table there. But that's not the only guard decision the Magic have. We talked about this a little bit last week with Jalen Suggs, but there is a very real choice to make about who to start at shooting guard. The Magic essentially have 4 starting spots already lined up. Wendell Carter at center, Markelle Fultz at point guard, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero at forward. The last spot open in this team is shooting guard. And for me, and I know I said this last week, but for me, Gary Harris is still penciled in as the starter. He is consistent. He's reliable. He's a good shooter. He spreads the floor. That starting lineup is really devoid of shooting. Having him on the floor is essential. And frankly, just Jalen Suggs hasn't proven it yet. He hasn't proven that he is up to that level, that he is up to the next level. And that's okay. Like, the Magic are going to give him the berth, give him the ability to prove himself, to prove that the things that seem to line up and put him in a better place last season, toward the end of last season after the All-Star break, are something a little bit more permanent. And again, that's what this ultimately comes down to. Has Jalen Suggs proven that he is the right guy? There's at least some numbers that suggest he is. The Magic with Gary Harris in the starting lineup had a plus 1.4 net rating in 570 minutes, a 113 offensive rating, 111.6 defensive rating. With Suggs on the floor, the Magic had a plus 11.3 net rating at 113.7, 102.4, split in 58 minutes. Not a huge sample, but there is something to it. We can't deny it that there's something to it. Suggs is a much more disruptive defender. He is potentially a better shooter, certainly a better attacker. Just got to reduce the turnovers and make better decisions. And ultimately, that's what this decision comes down to. And that's what so much of the season comes down to. We'll talk about this later, probably tomorrow, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, or in our next episode. I don't know if it'll be tomorrow. In our next episode, the Magic have to make better decisions, and they need players who are going to make the right decision, the smart decision, and put themselves in a better place to make plays for each other. Jalen Suggs is certainly capable of starting. I don't want to snuff that out at all. But if he doesn't start, if he doesn't kind of climb into that starting role or prepare himself or make himself available to be in that starting role, there are a lot of guys on this roster that would gladly take it from him, that gladly need minutes and gladly would put himself in this position. I don't want to call this a make or break season for Jalen Suggs, but this is a very, very, very big season for Jalen Suggs. He has a lot to prove. and a lot that he needs to prove and show off if he's going to be a long-term solution for this team. That's the truth of it. But that's not the only question the Magic have ahead of them. They have depth now. So we have to ask ourselves, where do the Magic's rookies fit in? We're going to get to that question, plus a question of lineup philosophy coming up here in just a moment. But first, it's time for a quick word from our friends over at FanDuel. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on MLB than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. We want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Remember, we're still on our quasi-summer schedule. Still potential I go daily, but at least 3 times a week here during our off-season schedule. I am taking a quick trip at the end of next week. So you'll have a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I will be off the rest of the week next week. But I will still be updating Orlando Magic Daily while I'm away. I'll also be updating the Orlando Magic Hub, my Patreon page. You can get information for that on my Twitter page at @PhilipRR_OMD. I posted on Monday a video explaining some of the basic principles of the Magic's offense and defense. About a 30-minute video, about as long as this video is, but check it out today. I'm planning on doing more fun stuff like that, especially once the season gets going. And so definitely check that out today. You can check that out, the Orlando Magic Hub, again, on Patreon. Again, the link to that is on my Twitter page at @PhilipRR_OMD. This Magic team is different, though. Different than teams that we've seen from this franchise for the last decade, really. As Jeff Weltman put it, Orlando is no longer a team that is just going to gift rookies minutes. And while Orlando has 2 lottery picks who are both very capable of playing, one of the big questions that I have for this Magic team is, where do they fit into the bigger picture? Because when you look at this depth chart and you look at the players on this team, because the Magic brought everybody back from last year and only dropped players that are not in the rotation, that were not in the rotation at the end of the season, we do have to ask ourselves, what is this team's ultimate rotation going to be in? If part of the Magic's goal is to give a runway or a path for these rookies to play, then we got to ask ourselves, is there truly a path for them to play? We'll get into some of the size issues. And again, the Magic certainly didn't draft on need. They got a shooter, but they didn't draft on positional need. And I'm fine with that. I do believe in the draft, especially that high in the draft. You draft based on talent. And the Magic got a very talented player in Anthony Black. He has a video, a vlog on his YouTube page where he admitted that, hey, he was dealing with an ankle. He told the interviewer on the vlog that he was dealing with an ankle issue early in Summer League. Still had a great run at Summer League, and honestly, the ankle issue certainly makes me feel like that's more impressive from him. But I have to ask, where does he fit in? Like, what is his role? Where are his minutes? Because the Magic will start Gary Harris or Jalen Suggs, most likely. They have Markelle Fultz and Cole Anthony. Those are your 4 guard spots. Even if you're sliding Gary Harris to the 3, now that starts to impede on Jett Howard. You've got Franz Wagner, you got Joe Ingles, who could probably play some 4. You're probably going to be splitting up more minutes between Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. Again, they played about 2/3 of their minutes together last year. Maybe the Magic drop that down so that they're covered at the 4. But even then, that means Joe Ingles is no longer playing the 4. He's going to play some more to the 3. Is this a situation where you're playing Anthony Black and Jett Howard more limited minutes early on, relying on veterans to spell more minutes, and you're going with a 10, 11-man rotation early in the season? And then as the season develops, maybe there's a trade, maybe there's something else going on. You kind of hand the keys over to these guys. They slowly ramp up their minutes as the season goes on. Depth is a good thing. I'm not going to complain that the Magic don't have room for the rookies because I feel very confident that if there's an injury to this roster, save to one of the 2 star players and maybe to Wendell Carter, which we're going to expect that he will miss some time, as long as there's no long-term injury to maybe the 3-star to the 2-star players and Wendell Carter, Franz Wagner, Paolo Banchero being the star players, this team can cover for injuries. The situation that caused that 5-20 start is not going to happen this time. The Magic have talented players, and look, Anthony Black's a rookie, Jet Howard's a rookie. They're going to make mistakes. The team will be worse when they're on the floor. That's kind of how it is. There will be pockets where they are better, and those are the pockets you hold on to. That's what we did with Paolo. Is the Magic clearly put a lot of trust in Paolo. They let him make mistakes. The Magic struggled when Paolo Banchero was on the floor. You could look at the numbers. That's true. That doesn't mean they were wrong. Doesn't mean he's bad. It's true. Rookies are bad. Rookies are always bad. This is the worst. You hope that your rookie season is the worst you will be. Anthony Black and Jet Howard are going to make mistakes, but I feel very comfortable and confident that both can step in for whatever role, limited or otherwise, that they can play. And I feel confident about that for about 12 guys on this roster. Jonathan Isaac, I feel very comfortable with whatever role the Magic need him to play. If he needs to start a few games because, Paolo or Franz have to miss time, as long as he's healthy, which is, maybe he won't be, but very confident that if he's healthy, he can step in and play a solid role. Now, we don't know what his minute restriction is going to be, but whatever. Joe Ingles, I'm very confident, can step in and play whatever role the Magic need him to play. I have confidence in Mo Wagner and Goga Bitadze to fill in minutes as needed. I have confidence in Cole Anthony to start if needed, and Jalen Suggs to start if needed, for Gary Harris to slide to the 3 if needed. I have confidence in all of these players. Really the only player that I don't have a ton of confidence in is Chuma Okeke. But even him, he's going to be in the right spot defensively. If he gets hot from 3, if he's playing the Golden State Warriors, he's going to score a lot of points. If there are injuries to this team, the Magic will be fine. We could not say that last year. And then we got Kevon Harris just hanging around, and Admiral Schofield for whatever limited minutes. If you need him for a game or two, he knows what he's doing. The Magic, I feel, for the first time in a while, there's no RJ Hampton who, we don't know what to expect from him on any given moment. He was literally rolling the dice, or, as impressive and good as Bol could be, he was a coin flip a lot of times. Right now, again, projecting out rookies, I feel very confident about every player on this roster that they could perform a role and that other players can fill in as needed. I'm not as worried about, unless there's a weird rash of injuries again, which there has been in recent Magic history. I am not concerned about this team's depth. They're going to be able to compete every single night. But that means when they're fully healthy, someone you really like is going to sit. It would not surprise. I think the Magic will make it a point to play Anthony Black and Jet Howard early in the season at the expense of someone else's minutes. Look, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Goga Bitadze, Joe Ingles, Mo Wagner are all going to be coming off of World Cup runs. Their minutes are going to be reduced. Let's be real. First quarter of the season, if Paolo Banchero is set to average 32 minutes a game, he's probably going to be at 28, 29, 30 for the first quarter of the season. If he's set to average 34 minutes a game, they're going to reduce those players' minutes. And while, yes, the Magic's 2-star players are part of that, that's going to be those minutes that they reduce are going to be used to give an Anthony Black, a Jet Howard some minutes. But when you look at this roster and you look at the rotation, you look at the potential for this rotation, the rookies don't have that clear path to play. They really do need to earn their keep. They really do need to earn their playing time and where they sit in the pecking order. That's exactly what this Magic team wants. They want that internal competition where everyone's, fighting hard against each other, but ultimately fighting hard for each other and for the team. That's part of the culture the Magic want to build, and that's going to play out in training camp. That's going to play out throughout the course of this coming season. It will not be easy, to be sure. And there will be some hard decisions, and there will be some decisions that a lot of people don't like. That's just the reality of it. But in the end, I do think in the end, I do think we will see Anthony Black and Jett Howard emerge as rotation players. And obviously, that's only going to raise more questions. And so the challenge for the Orlando Magic early on this season is to find ways to make sure that they get that experience that they need to develop, to grow, and then to start figuring out the roster and the rotation to put themselves in a position to win more. Again, this team will face injuries. Every team does. I'm more confident in this team facing, handling, and dealing with injury adversity than last year's team for sure. And so we'll see what ultimately comes of that. But with those roster decisions, with the depth chart as it is, comes another really important decision. A decision about whether to go big or to go small and what that means for the Orlando Magic. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. Like I said, if you're part of my everyday crew, we're going to be back. I don't know when we'll be back. It might be tomorrow. It might be for Wednesday. It might be for Thursday. I am, as you can see, wearing my Team USA jersey. I'm recording this before the women's national team game, before the World Cup game. And I am planning to power through and watch it live. So no spoilers, although by the time I publish this, the game will be over. So I don't know if I'll be doing a podcast on Wednesday, but certainly for our next episode, I'm going to talk about playing better basketball. It's been kind of the phrase of the day for this front office. I'm going to talk about what that actually means. We'll talk about that on our next episode of Locked On Magic. But let's close out today by talking a little bit more about kind of philosophy for this team and the way this team is constructed. The Orlando Magic love length. They love positional versatility. They love skill versatility. They love all of these things. And they love being able to throw out junk defenses. They love being able to pressure. They love being able to switch. They love throwing bodies at players, something I talked about on my video on Orlando Magic Hub on Monday. They love doing all of these things. But at the end of the day, too, what that means for this Magic team is they're sometimes at a size deficit. And look, I'm here to say this season is about figuring out this team's weaknesses. And the only way you're going to figure out a team's weaknesses is by playing a playoff series. As good as the regular season is, and I am an advocate for the regular season, I think we should recognize regular season excellence a whole lot more. It is a different challenge than the playoffs, just like the in-season tournament will be a different challenge than the regular season. I think we should celebrate regular season excellence and regular season and the ability to play successfully in the regular season because it is something different. The playoffs are a completely different challenge. And what the playoffs do when you have the chance to sit down, hammer in a 7-game series, is pick apart every little weakness on a team. And so what I believe the Magic want to happen, they want to lose a playoff series. That sounds weird. They want to lose a playoff series because this team is so young and so malleable that a playoff series is going to test this team. They're going to quickly learn who can step up. Do you want to give a big contract to Markelle Fultz? A lot easier to hand him a big contract and hand him the keys for good if he's just had a really nice playoff series. You believe Cole Anthony can be an elite sixth man? Well, he just averaged 16, 17 points per game in a playoff series for you. That feels very real. That feels something that you can bank on. Do you want to know where your holes are defensively, where your holes are stylistically, where your holes are personnel-wise? Well, in a playoff series, especially as a lower seed, a top team is going to pick you apart. They're going to find your weakness and put their thumb into that wound and rip it open, to be graphic. That's what the Magic need to see this year. And so when you look at this roster, my big concern is that it lacks size. And we saw this in the NBA Finals where the Nuggets just pounded the Heat inside. And their lack of size really was a big, big part of why Miami ended up losing that series. You need size. And unfortunately, while I think the Magic were a good rebounding team and did a great job packing the paint last year, I have my concerns that this team is too small. But there's no indication this team is going to play big. The Magic are going to lean completely into this idea of positional versatility and press it for all that it's worth. It's playing Bol last year, moving Franz to the 2. That was part of this experiment, and there were some good returns on it. You can see the Magic easily throwing out a lineup of Wendell Carter, Jonathan Isaac, Paolo Banchero, Franz Wagner, Anthony Black, and just going really big and really long. And I really hope the Magic do experiment with lineups like these, that they do try them out in practice, throw them out in a preseason game, throw them out in the regular season. Try Paolo Banchero at the 5. We do know that the Magic are going to lean toward going small. They did not play Wendell Carter 1 minute alongside Goga Bitadze or Mo Wagner last year. The Magic at least settled in that Wendell Carter's exclusively your center, playing alongside Paolo Banchero, playing alongside Franz Wagner. They're going to play small. Joe Ingles will probably get minutes at the 4. When I looked at the Summer League roster and the way the Magic were playing at Summer League, I don't think that was unintentional. As poorly as it played, I think the Magic wanted to see Jet Howard, Caleb Houston play the 4 a little bit. See if they could body up some of those bigger players. And they did all right. I wouldn't want to do it for very long, but they did all right. The Magic are likely to play Joe Ingles a little bit at the 4. They're likely to try and use, certainly use Jonathan Isaac as the main backup for the two forwards, but they'll start playing Paolo and Franz with Isaac a little bit more. They'll go big with Anthony Black in the backcourt, or do Black, Howard, Wagner, Banchero, Carter, or Bitadze, or whoever. They're going to do lineups like that. They picked Jet Howard essentially because he is bigger and more athletic and gives more defensive versatility potential than Grady Dick or Jordan Hawkins. That was their principle. That was what they believed in. And so I think that the Magic, one of the big questions the Magic have to answer is, if their intention is to go small, how do they fill in the gaps? Can they be a more effective rebounding team? Because as good as they were rebounding, they were 8th in the league in defensive rebound rate last year. They were 15th in the league in second chance points allowed per game. Again, imperfect measure, but there's a clear discrepancy there. There's a clear, there's no equilibrium there. You usually want to be about the same on both, but they gave up a lot of second chance points. Their defensive strategy is pack the paint with length and spray out to the three-point shooters in rotations. They get caught a lot in bad drop coverages a lot. So if you go small, you're just switching everything. If this is the organizational philosophy, how does it all actually work? How does it actually play out? Because the Magic could go big just as easily. I could easily see them going a Bitadze, Carter, Banchero, Wagner, Black lineup. You can easily see them go big and a more traditional setup. But more likely than not, they're going to play small this year and bank on their teamwork, bank on their IQ, bank on their length to cover up for some of these deficiencies that small teams typically have. This is part of what training camp is for. And like I said on Friday's episode of Locked On Magic, this roster is better as I think it is than last year's team. And the depth that they have, there are still clearly some holes to fill. This ain't the 2010 team where it felt like the Magic could play up or down or to however their matchup called for. The Magic are going to be themselves, and there might be bad matchups for them where they just don't have the personnel to hang tough. And as they get better, they're going to have to find that flexibility. I think Jamal Mosley is a flexible enough coach. He isn't strict to draconian lineups or rotations. He is going to experiment. He's going to try things. And if something, he might stick with something a little longer than necessary. Maybe that leash tightens up a little bit this year than it did last year. But he is willing to change and try new things. The Magic, though, are going to have to answer a lot of these questions. They're big questions. They're training camp questions. They're season-long questions. But there are questions this Magic team should already be thinking about and preparing for as they get set for the season. And, of course, we've got a long way to go before that. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Subscribe to the podcast and Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all of us on the podcast to your podcast-enabled listening device. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. You can follow us there on Twitter at OMagicDaily. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. If you're part of my everyday crew, again, tomorrow we're going to talk about, or on our next episode, I don't know if it'll be tomorrow, on our next episode of Locked On Magic, we'll talk about the way the Magic play better basketball, what that actually means, and some of the things that it actually entails. We'll get to that coming up in just a moment. Don't forget, NFL season is really in full swing already. Our friends at Locked On Bucks and Locked On Jaguars have you covered for our local NFL teams. Locked On Gators has you covered for Florida Gators. Locked On Noles has you covered for the Florida State Seminoles. And Locked On Big 12 will get you a little bit of a UCF fix, I am sure. The Locked On Podcast Network is still going strong. And our friends Locked On Rays, of course, have you covered for the Tampa Bay Rays. The Locked On Podcast Network is still going very, very strong, even here in the NBA offseason. But that's going to do it for me today. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. For Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. See you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.